All right, jumping off the cliff. What does that mean exactly? Well, Terry and I are jumping off the cliff, so to speak. So we are getting rid of all of our stuff. We're going to buy an RV and we're going to hit the road and live full time as nomads. At least that's what the plan is. Um, and I call it jumping off the cliff because it's a pretty big step. I quit my job, which was a good one, working for a private college in Madison, Wisconsin, and had a great time there. Loved the people, but Terry and I have been nomads pretty much. We've lived in I don't know how many different states, some of them more than once, but we've always had kind of a wandering nature, and that's been sort of building up in both of us again. We've lived here quite a while now, I think, going on something like almost 8 years. So the time has come. We're going to take the plunge, step off the cliff, so to speak, and head on the road. So, step one is done. I've quit my job. I am a computer uh, consulting sort of guy, programming, etc. Running servers, that type of thing. So a lot of that can be done from the road. And thanks to my brother's company, I'm going to help with some software there, and that kind of gives me a bit of a cushion as we start this new adventure, um, at least for about a year anyway. So the first thing after quitting the job then is to begin focusing on what we're going to get for a vehicle. If a person were to lay out the pros and cons of all the different types of vehicles that you could do this in, you'd find arguments for and valid arguments for every type of vehicle. So there's basically three sorts of RVs. There's Class A, which is the big motorhomes. There are Class B, and I'm not sure how they got in this order exactly, but Class B tend to be more like vans. And then Class C is sort of a cross between the van type motorhome and the big full blown motorhome. There's probably some real definition that I'm not aware of there. Um, there's good argument for going with what I think is becoming probably the most popular setup, and that is using a pickup with a fifth wheel. And the fifth wheel is the terminology for the type of connection for a trailer. Basically it's like what a semi uses, um, but a pickup with fifth wheel and then a fifth wheel trailer. And I think that if you really were objective and laid out all of the pros and cons about those two methods between the fifth wheel type of setup and the other types of RV setups, the fifth wheel probably has a lot more pros to it. I'm not sure I can think of a con right off the top, except that your driving quarters are separate from your living quarters, so you're like, if I were driving, then Terry couldn't be in the back, and that isn't a big deal unless you have pets, and then it becomes a little bit more significant. It's kind of nice to be able to let them have their spot in the home as you go. I think for us though, the Class B is much too small, the van, so it was going to be between the fifth wheel and the Class A. Class C probably would work too, but I want to pull a vehicle in our case, and that would be harder to do if you were driving a Class C motorhome. So we narrowed it down to fifth wheel or Class A, and the reason that I decided to go with the Class A is that I spent several years at one point driving a truck over the road, and there's a couple of things that I want in my vehicle, and that is, one, I want a good brand of diesel engine, either Cummins or Caterpillar, preferably Cummins because there's more Cummins service centers than I think there are Caterpillar. Caterpillar tends to be focus more on construction equipment anyway, even though they make fine engines, I'm sure. I wanted an Allison transmission, but the biggest factor in deciding to go this route is that I want the Jake brake. We're going to spend most of our time out in the western part of the United States, and anytime you're driving and you're going downhill in a large vehicle, whether you're pulling a trailer or not, or a vehicle behind you, brakes, become critical, obviously. And the Jake brake that comes built into a Cummins or a Caterpillar engine is just a fantastic device. Basically, you turn on the Jake brake as you're coasting downhill, and it uses the engine's compression to compress air and basically use the engine as a brake. So the vehicle is, if not slowed down, it's at least kept from speeding up without actually using the brakes. So in a Class A motorhome that I'm envisioning, I want the air brakes, I want the Jake brake, which is the Jacobs brake, which is a compression brake, and I want the diesel engine. And all of that, comes easily in the Class A motorhome. In terms of a pickup, you can get great diesel pickups. There's no doubt about that. I think you can even get them with Jake brakes nowadays. But to get a pickup and a fifth wheel of the kind of size that we're looking at in a Class A motorhome, we'd spend easily what we'll spend on a Class A. In fact, probably more. Some of those pickups are running 50 grand just for the pickup nowadays. So, so I think the Class A is going to be how we're going to do this. And in looking at the different construction out there, I like the Newmars, and I don't care whether it's a Freightliner chassis or a Spartan chassis. When I drove a truck, we called Freightliners freight shakers. But to tell you the truth, there was nothing, I couldn't tell the difference driving a Freightliner versus a Peterbilt or Kenworth. I liked them all, but I did prefer, I did like my KW, but I also like Peterbilts. But anyway, so we'll probably go with whatever we can get a good deal on. That's got preferably Cummins, got to have the Allison transmission, which I think is standard. But these diesel engines in these motorhomes make for a quiet, smooth, ride where you can't even tell if you're pulling a car behind you. They've got enough torque that it's not a big deal on there. So that's going to be our plan, and we're going to keep everybody posted through videos of exactly how this goes, good, bad, or otherwise. I'm a bit nervous about it. It's a major change, and finding places to stay free of charge, boondocking as they call it, is going to be a challenge, and just the whole thing is going to be, I think, much more of a challenge than probably either Terry or I realize, but we're about to find out. So stay tuned. Thanks.